The sound of the slap cracked across the cafeteria like a gunshot. For half a second, nobody moved. Trays stayed frozen midair. A junior near the vending machines dropped his phone. And in the center of it all, Maya Jefferson stood with one hand pressed to her cheek, her eyes wide with shock more than pain, staring at Tyler Whitfield, whose hand was still raised from the follow-through. "Don't you ever talk to me like that again," Tyler said, loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear, his voice shaking with the particular fury of someone who had never once in his life been told no and was furious at the novelty of it. Maya's hand dropped slowly from her face. A red mark was already blooming across her cheekbone. She did not cry. She did not back away. She looked at him with an expression that was somehow worse than tears, flat, controlled, the look of someone storing away every detail for later. "You hit me," she said. Her voice did not shake. "You called me a liar in front of the whole table," Tyler shot back, but something in his certainty had already started to crack, the way it does for people who act first and realize the size of what they've done only after the room goes quiet around them. "You are a liar," Maya said. "I told Mr. Donnelly you copied my lab report, and you told him I copied yours. That's not an opinion, Tyler. That's what happened." A girl named Brianna, sitting 2 seats down, had her phone out and recording before Maya finished the sentence. 3 other students did the same within seconds. The cafeteria, which moments earlier had been a wall of noise, trays clattering, sneakers squeaking, 200 teenagers eating lunch on a Tuesday, had gone almost completely silent except for the low murmur of disbelief rippling outward from the center table. "Somebody get Mr. Davies," a lunch aide called out, already moving toward the office door at the back of the cafeteria. Tyler's face had gone pale. He looked around at the phones pointed at him, at the silence, at Maya still standing there with the red mark spreading across her cheek, and for the first time something like fear moved behind his eyes. "This isn't, she provoked me," he said, to no one in particular, to everyone in particular. "You all saw it. She was in my face." "I was 3 feet away from you," Maya said. "I didn't touch you. I didn't raise my voice. You hit me because I told the truth and you didn't like it." Principal Davies arrived within 90 seconds, moving through the cafeteria with the brisk urgency of an administrator who had clearly been told something serious had happened before he even reached the room. He took one look at Maya's cheek, at the crowd of students with their phones still raised, at Tyler standing rigid near the table with his jaw set, and his expression shifted from concern into something more careful and more complicated. "Maya, are you all right?" he asked, crouching slightly to look at her face. "No," Maya said honestly. "He hit me." Davies looked at Tyler. "Tyler, my office. Now." "This is ridiculous," Tyler said, but he was already moving, the bravado from 30 seconds ago evaporating fast under the principal's stare and the dozen phones still recording. "She started it." "We'll discuss what started it in my office," Davies said. His tone had gone flat and professional, the tone of a man already calculating consequences he did not want to be responsible for managing. He turned to the lunch aide. "Get the nurse for Maya. And somebody call her mother." Maya sat in the nurse's office 20 minutes later with an ice pack pressed to her cheek, her hands folded tightly in her lap, replaying the last hour in her mind with the kind of precision she usually reserved for studying. She had told Mr. Donnelly the truth about the lab report because the truth mattered to her, because she had worked 2 nights staying up late finishing it properly while Tyler had texted her twice asking for the answers, and when their teacher asked who had copied whom, Tyler had looked her dead in the eye and lied. She had not expected him to hit her. She had known Tyler Whitfield was used to getting his way. Everyone at Jefferson Heights High School knew that the way you know weather patterns an established fact of the environment you lived in. His father was the mayor. Teachers softened around him in small, invisible ways. Coaches gave him extra chances. But she had never imagined, not once, that it would come to this. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, "On my way. Are you okay?" Maya typed back with hands that were only now beginning to shake, now that the adrenaline was draining and leaving something rawer behind it. "He hit me, Mom." In the cafeteria. In front of everyone. The response came back almost instantly. "I'm 5 minutes away. Do not say anything else to anyone until I get there." "I mean it, Maya." Denise Jefferson arrived at Jefferson Heights High School 11 minutes later, walking through the front doors with the particular controlled speed of a woman who had spent her entire adult life learning exactly how much of her anger to show and when. She was an attorney, not a famous one. Not the kind whose name appeared in headlines, but a careful and thorough one who had spent 14 years practicing civil rights law in cases most people never heard about because they settled quietly before trial. She found the front office and asked, in a voice that was calm in the specific way that made people pay closer attention rather than less, to see her daughter immediately. When she saw the mark on Maya's cheek, something in her expression went very still. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. "Every word. Don't leave anything out." Maya told her. All of it, the lab report, the lie, the slap, the silence in the cafeteria afterward, the phone's recording. Denise listened without interrupting, her jaw tightening incrementally with every sentence, until Maya finished and the office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Denise stood up. She pulled out her phone. "Mom, who are you calling?" Maya asked. "Someone who is going to make sure this does not get quietly handled the way these things usually get handled in this town," Denise said. She scrolled to a contact and pressed call, raising the phone to her ear, her voice steady and very, very clear.
"Hi.
It's Denise. I need you to clear your afternoon." Principal Davies's office felt smaller than usual with 5 people crammed inside it. Maya sat beside her mother, the ice pack still pressed gingerly to her cheek. Tyler sat across the room beside his father, who had arrived 12 minutes after Denise's phone call, moving through the school hallways with the brisk, entitled stride of a man used to doors opening for him before he reached them. Mayor Robert Whitfield was tall, silver-haired, dressed in the kind of suit that announced its tailoring without trying to. He sat down beside his son and immediately put one hand on Tyler's shoulder in a gesture that was meant to look supportive and instead looked, to everyone else in the room, like damage control. "I want to understand what happened here," Robert said, his voice smooth and measured, the voice of a man who had given 1,000 press statements and knew exactly how to sound reasonable while saying nothing. "Tyler tells me there was some kind of disagreement that got out of hand." "Your son hit my daughter," Denise said. Her voice was level and completely without theatrics, which somehow made it land harder than if she had shouted. In front of 200 witnesses, several of whom recorded it on their phones. Robert's jaw flickered. "Teenagers say things in the heat of the moment, Mrs. Jefferson. I'm sure there's context here we're all missing." "There's no context that makes hitting a child acceptable," Denise said. "She's not a child. She's 16, Tyler muttered, and his father shot him a look so sharp it actually silenced him, the first sign that Robert understood, even if Tyler didn't yet, exactly how much trouble this had the potential to become. "Principal Davies," Robert said, turning his attention smoothly toward the man behind the desk, "surely there's a way to handle this that doesn't require, well, escalation. A suspension, certainly. Perhaps some kind of mediated conversation between the students. We don't need this turning into something bigger than it is." Davies shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mayor Whitfield, with respect, this is a clear case of physical assault on school grounds. There's a process for that, and it doesn't depend on—" "I understand there's a process," Robert said, his tone still pleasant but with an edge now beneath it, the edge of a man accustomed to processes bending around him. "I'm simply suggesting we exercise some discretion. Tyler has never had a disciplinary incident in 3 years at this school. Surely that counts for something." "My daughter has a mark on her face that's going to bruise," Denise said. "I don't care how many disciplinary incidents your son has had. He hit her. That happened. I have it on video from at least 3 angles, because apparently half the cafeteria had their phones out." Something shifted in Robert's expression at the word video. It was small, almost imperceptible, but Denise had spent 14 years reading the faces of people who suddenly understood they had a problem larger than they'd initially calculated, and she caught it immediately. "Mrs. Jefferson," Robert said, his tone softening into something more careful, "I understand you're upset, and you have every right to be. But I want you to consider, these things, when they become public, they can take on a life of their own that doesn't actually serve anyone. Tyler is 17. He made a terrible mistake. I'm not excusing it, But dragging this into the press, into some kind of spectacle, that doesn't help your daughter. It just makes everyone's life harder, including hers. Are you asking me not to go to the press? Denise said quietly. I'm asking you to think about what actually helps Maya, Robert said. A quiet resolution. An apology. Perhaps Tyler completes some community service, attends counseling. We could even arrange for the school to cover any medical costs, counseling for Maya if she needs it. I just don't see what good comes from turning this into a public circus. Maya, who had been silent through most of the conversation, finally spoke. You mean what good comes from people finding out your son hit a black girl at lunch because she told the truth about him? The room went still. Robert's smile, which had been holding steady through the entire conversation, faltered for the first time. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant, Maya said. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. You're not worried about me. You're worried about your campaign next year. Tyler shifted in his chair, looking suddenly very young and very aware that the conversation had moved somewhere his father could no longer fully steer. Denise stood up. I appreciate the offer, Mayor Whitfield. I do. But my daughter does not need a quiet resolution that protects your reputation. She needs the truth to be told plainly, and she needs consequences that actually mean something, not a private arrangement that disappears the second the cameras aren't watching. She picked up her bag. I already made a phone call before I walked into this office. To a friend of mine who happens to run the investigative desk at Channel 9. She's already pulled 3 videos off social media that students posted within the last hour. This isn't a private matter anymore, Mayor Whitfield. It stopped being private the moment your son raised his hand in a cafeteria full of witnesses with phones. Robert's face had gone genuinely pale now, the practiced calm finally cracking all the way through. Mrs. Jefferson, please. Let's talk about this before anyone does anything rash. I'm not doing anything rash, Denise said. I'm doing exactly what any parent should do when their child gets hurt and the person responsible tries to make it disappear because of who his father is. She looked at Davies. I expect a formal disciplinary process, documented properly, starting today. And I expect this school to stop treating my daughter's safety as a negotiation. She took Maya's hand. Let's go home, baby. You've had enough of this room for one day. As they walked out, Maya glanced back once at Tyler, who was staring at the floor, and at Robert, who had pulled out his phone and was already typing something with the frantic energy of a by 6 o'clock that evening. The videos had been viewed over 200,000 times. Carla Bennett, lead investigative reporter for Channel 9 and Denise's friend since law school, had moved fast, faster than Robert Whitfield's team had anticipated, faster than the school district's communications office could manage. By the time the 6 o'clock news aired, Carla had 3 separate angles of the cafeteria incident stitched together, verified through interviews with 2 other students who corroborated Maya's account, and a brief, but pointed, statement from the district confirming that an investigation was underway. What we're looking at, Carla said on air, her voice calm and precise, the camera holding steady on her face, is video evidence showing Mayor Robert Whitfield's 17-year-old son striking a fellow student, 16-year-old Maya Jefferson, during a lunchtime altercation at Jefferson Heights High School. Multiple students confirmed the altercation began after Jefferson reported an academic integrity issue involving young Whitfield to a teacher. We've reached out to the mayor's office for comment. The mayor's office had, in fact, issued a statement within the hour, a careful, lawyer-reviewed paragraph expressing concern for all students involved and confidence that the school district would handle the matter appropriately. It was the kind of statement designed to say nothing while appearing to say something, and it did not survive contact with the internet for more than 20 minutes before it was being quoted, mocked, and dissected across every local social media account in the city. Denise sat at her kitchen table that night with Maya beside her, watching the segment play on the small television propped against the counter. Maya had been quiet for most of the evening, the adrenaline of the day finally settling into something heavier and more tired. Are you scared? Denise asked, watching her daughter's face. A little, Maya admitted. Everyone at school is going to know. Everyone in the whole city is going to know. She looked at her mother. What if it gets worse instead of better? Denise reached over and took her hand. Sometimes things have to get loud before they get fair, she said. I know that's not comforting right now. But you didn't do anything wrong, Maya. You told the truth. That's it. That's the whole thing you did. Everything that happened after that is on him, and on his father for trying to make it disappear instead of making it right. The phone rang. Denise answered it, and her expression shifted the moment she heard the voice on the other end. Mrs. Jefferson, Robert Whitfield said, his voice noticeably less smooth than it had been in the principal's office that afternoon. I'd like to come by. Talk privately. I think there's been a serious miscommunication today, and I'd like the chance to make things right, away from all this noise. There's no miscommunication, Mayor Whitfield, Denise said. Your son hit my daughter. That's not complicated. What would you like to talk about? There was a pause on the line. I'm asking for a chance to apologize. Properly. And to discuss what an appropriate resolution looks like that doesn't destroy my son's future over one terrible mistake. You can apologize to Maya directly on the record, the same way this happened, publicly, Denise said. Not in my living room where nobody can verify what was actually said. If your apology is real, it can survive being said where people can hear it. Another pause, longer this time. That's not typically how these things are handled. No, Denise agreed. Usually powerful men get to handle things quietly and walk away clean while everyone else lives with the consequences. That's exactly the problem, Mayor Whitfield. That's the entire problem. By the following morning, the story had moved beyond local news. A national outlet picked it up by 10 a.m., framing it as part of a broader story about accountability and privilege, and by noon the hashtag was trending statewide. The school board called an emergency meeting for that evening. 3 city council members issued statements distancing themselves from the mayor's office's handling of the situation. A local civil rights organization announced they would be attending the school board meeting in support of Maya and her family. Tyler, meanwhile, had not returned to school. Robert kept him home, ostensibly for his safety given the attention, though Denise suspected it was as much about controlling the narrative as protecting his son. 2 more students came forward over the course of the day with stories of their own, smaller incidents, things that had been quietly smoothed over before because Tyler's last name made consequences disappear. None of them had hit anyone before, but all of them described the same pattern. A young man who had learned, from watching his father operate for years, that rules were things that happened to other people. By the time the school board meeting convened that evening, the auditorium was packed beyond capacity, with an overflow crowd standing in the hallway outside. Carla Bennett's cameras were there. 3 other news vans had arrived from neighboring markets. Denise sat in the front row with Maya beside her, and when the board chair opened the floor for public comment, Denise stood and walked to the microphone with the same steady composure she had carried through every step since the cafeteria. My daughter did nothing wrong, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the packed room. She told the truth about an assignment. For that, she was struck across the face by a boy who has never once, in 17 years, faced a consequence that mattered. And when it happened, the first response from the most powerful man in this city was not concern for a child who got hurt. It was a concern for his own reputation. She paused, letting the silence settle. I am not here asking for revenge. I am asking this board, and this city, to treat my daughter's safety with the same seriousness you would treat anyone else's. That should not be a controversial request. The fact that it is tells you everything you need to know about how this city has been run. The room erupted into applause that did not stop for nearly a full minute. A man trying to get ahead of a story that had already, without his permission, started running. Robert Whitfield resigned 11 days later. It did not happen all at once. The school board's investigation, conducted independently and under intense public scrutiny, confirmed everything Maya had said and found that Tyler's pattern of behavior had been quietly managed by school administrators for years under what one anonymous staff member described in a leaked email as informal pressure from the mayor's office to avoid disciplinary action that might embarrass the family. 2 city council members called for an independent ethics review. A second wave of reporting from Carla Bennett uncovered a prior incident from 2 years earlier, a different student, a different quiet settlement, a different non-disclosure agreement quietly signed. A different quiet settlement, a different non-disclosure agreement quietly signed and quietly forgotten until now. The pressure built steadily, The way these things do once the first crack appears, and people who had been afraid to speak finally understand they are not alone. Robert tried, for a few days, to weather it the way he had weathered every previous controversy in his career. Careful statements, strategic silence, a brief televised interview in which he expressed regret without quite apologizing for anything specific. It did not work. The video of Tyler's hand connecting with Maya's face had already done more to define the story than any statement his office could craft, and no amount of careful language could undo what 200,000 people, and then 2 million people, had already watched with their own eyes. He stood at a podium on a Tuesday morning, 11 days after the slap, and announced his resignation effective immediately, citing a need to focus on my family during this difficult time, language that made Denise, watching from her kitchen, shake her head at the particular irony of a man citing family as his reason for stepping down from a position he had spent years using to protect that same family from consequences. Tyler did not return to Jefferson Heights High School. He was enrolled instead in a private academy 2 counties over, a quiet transfer that surprised no one. He never publicly apologized to Maya, not really. A brief statement released through his father's office used the word regret, without ever quite using the word sorry, and Maya read it once, folded it into the category of things that did not deserve more of her attention, and moved on. What stayed with her, in the weeks that followed, was not the resignation or the headlines or the strangers who recognized her at the grocery store and told her she was brave. What stayed with her was the morning she walked back into Jefferson Heights High School for the first time since the incident, nervous in a way she hadn't expected to be, and found that the hallway outside the cafeteria had been quietly repainted over the weekend, and that Principal Davies had personally arranged for her schedule to avoid any shared classes with students who had been hostile to her online. Small things. Practical things. The kind of accountability that didn't make headlines but mattered more than the ones that did. She sat with her mother on the back porch one evening in late October, the air finally cooling into something like fall, and asked the question that had been sitting in her chest since the whole thing started. "Do you think it actually changed anything?" she asked. "Or did it just end one guy's career, and now everyone moves on?" Denise considered the question seriously, the way she considered everything Maya asked her. "I think it changed something for you," she said. "You learned that telling the truth, even when it costs you something, is still worth doing." "That's not nothing, Maya. That's actually the whole thing." She looked out at the yard. Did it fix every broken system in the city? No. One resignation doesn't do that. But it cracked something open that needed cracking. And sometimes that's how it starts. Not with everything getting fixed all at once. With one person refusing to stay quiet. Maya thought about that for a long moment. Then she nodded, slowly, and leaned her head against her mother's shoulder, and for the first time in 11 days, she let herself feel something close to peace about the whole thing. If this story moves something in you, drop a comment below right now and tell me. Do you think the mayor's resignation was justice, or should there have been more accountability for Tyler himself? I want to hear what you think. Hit that like button, subscribe because a brand new story arrives every single week, and I will see you in the next one.